Hey, beautiful people. How are you? My name is Conor.
My name is Brittany.
And we are here with Maryn. And we sort of just prompted Maryn that we would be allowing her to intro herself, or maybe forcing her to intro herself. I don't know, but either way, inviting. Thank you. Maryn, who are you?
Yeah, who am I?
If you've been curious about what ConorandBrittany.com membership is all about, we have just released free membership.
We'd love for you to come on over and check out the videos, exercises, discounts, and so much more.
Also get into our secret group on Facebook.
Do it.
Thanks for the invitation, you guys. Let's see. I live in Sedona, Arizona, and I'm a midwife here. I am the mom to 9 awesome kids, soon to be, or not too soon, but eventually to be 10, and married to my partner, Jason, and just living the good life here. It's the shortest intro ever.
I love that.
That's perfect.
That's really great. Yeah, and we know Maryn because actually before we got pregnant, we started listening to Taking Back Birth, which is the podcast that you have through Indie Birth, and it just like from the first episode I listened to of yours, I just felt like it was your vibe more than anything, Maryn, like as well as the information that you share, but your presence and attunement, and I felt so dropped in with you and just captivated and wanted to just be in more of what you were sharing. So I just started soaking up all of the podcasts, and we listened to a lot together. And then we got to develop this cool relationship towards the end of our pregnancy and through birth and beyond.
Yeah, and I guess for those of you who are watching who don't know about, our birth story and maybe are interested in that, we do have a video there that we'll link. And, we sort of were interested in doing birth outside the hospital. We kind of knew that we wanted to do it that way. And then we're sort of looking at resources of what options we had, and particularly wanted to find a voice, and encouragement. And I think that's like what I found to be really helpful in connecting with you first, Maryn, just through your podcast, and then being able to speak with you. So
thanks for what you do, because you just like what feels like to me, you sharing your truth has been so impactful for us and for so many others, and so inspiring.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me, especially after so many episodes of a podcast. Sometimes you're like, what else do I have to talk about? I mean, I always find things to talk about, but yeah, thanks for sharing that, because that is what I'm trying to do. I think it is less about information and more about representing a possibility that we all have as people, to be free in our choices and to be confident in them, and to have that be our truth, and to not be doing it for anyone or for any other reason. And the birth world is still in so much need of that, because there's so many people and places and, ways of doing it, but really it comes back to you. So that's definitely something I admire about both of you. And I was reflecting this morning just on, working with you in your pregnancy, and how beautiful and natural it was, and how your birth definitely seems to have reflected that confidence that was growing in you, Britt, the whole time. Yeah. So just an honor to have witnessed you guys the way I have, even from afar, and to know that that was powerful in your experience.
Yeah.
It's been so powerful. And actually from that, I'd love to hear if you want to share a little bit about how you support people in their pregnancies and births and postpartum as well, and like how that's changed for you, because I know you've had quite a journey with that.
Yeah, it has been quite a journey. So I'll try and wrap it up a little bit quicker in the beginning so I can get to the good part. So I started my life as a midwife on my own, as a licensed midwife here in Arizona. And that's kind of where the story is. I was licensed and then eventually wound up in a battle with the state of Arizona over keeping my license because I had supported a woman who was outside of the regulations, very knowingly supported her outside of the regulations. And so eventually the message was, I wasn't supposed to do it that way. It wasn't a matter of fighting for something that I didn't want or believe in. It was about finding my truth. So I'm so grateful for that experience. It, sounds hard, and it was hard in a lot of ways, but it showed me what I really believe. I was forced to look at what I was actually subscribing to by working for the state as a midwife, which is you're working for the state as a midwife. You're not actually working for the woman or her family. I was pregnant at the same time with my sixth baby, and just everything kind of coincided for me to, again, just really take a transparent look at what I believed. Did I believe I was needed as a midwife for birth? Did I believe I was there to save someone? Like, these were questions that I would have said no to, but yet I had been practicing in a way that maybe was otherwise. So I came through that experience, not just as a midwife, but as someone that also free birthed. Our sixth baby was a free birth. Someone that had kind of cracked in a lot of ways, in a lot of good ways. And I knew after his birth that I would never be licensed again. I wasn't quite sure how I would actually do this thing, but it completely changed everything. And so when I did start working as a midwife again in a way that works, outside of licensing, it wasn't a matter of, I don't have a paper anymore, but I'm just going to keep doing things the same. It forced me to question absolutely everything. And I still love doing that. I think you're probably both those kind of people, it's like, still every day, every interaction I have, every birth I'm at, I question what's necessary and what's needed and what's appropriate for that family, down to the words that might come out of your mouth in a scenario. Like, everything is actually so important and can affect someone's experience. So I want to have the least negative impact, obviously, on people's experience, with the fact that they want me there, and that may already be an interference, right? It's changed everything. It's changed the way prenatal care looks with the women I work with. It's changed the kind of people that even walk in the door, completely different than 10 years ago. It changes everything. And to sum it up, I feel like it's really autonomy in the best way I know of, while still acting in the role of a midwife. I think people often think that, autonomy is something that they can only get if they're alone. And that certainly is one way, if you have no input, right? And you're confident in yourself. But I do think it's possible for midwives to be autonomous in their own practice, and to work with people that also want autonomy in their experience. And, I know this isn't a midwifery talk, and people don't necessarily know all the variations of midwives around the world and in this country. But that's a pretty radical thought. And, I think we're at a place in history where a lot of people don't want anything to do with anyone, midwife or other, at their birth, because they know that in most cases they're not able to be autonomous. So, someone might make a choice for them that they don't like. Someone might tell them they have to do something or else. And that's just not what I'm about. And I could never work that way again. So
yeah,
that's a really long blab about that.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing that I love from everything that I've heard from you is, to me, there is not, this is the right way and this is the wrong way. It's about, are you making a conscious choice? And encouraging people to do what is absolutely best for them, whether that's in a hospital or at home with a midwife or at home by themselves or whatever other variation there might be, but that it be one of conscious choice. And I think that's the big difference, between just assuming that we have to do it this certain way because that's pretty much what we've been modeled here in the United States, and then hearing this voice of what you said before, here is an option. here is something different. And within that, it opens you up to, I can make that choice for myself and bring more consciousness into that. And of course, there's maybe an education factor for some people that might feel important, but for me, it was mostly about feeling confident in that. And my question is around space holding and what it really looks like for you when you are attending a birth and being autonomous and like holding that space for the natural process that that person has consciously chosen. How does that differ from maybe other types of midwifery or maybe hospital births?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it begins, or I know it begins for me, with the relationship that I have with people so well before the birth. So I think a common misconception of midwifery in general, and then perhaps out of the box midwifery, and even other midwives may have this criticism because they don't understand. It's like, oh, you're just sitting in the other room, not paying attention. Oh, you're just in your car, or you're just knitting. Like, that's what these people want. They don't want anything from you. And it's like, no, there's so much work on both ends of the relationship to get to a place where when you're in their space for their birth experience, it's nothing like that at all. I mean, yeah, you're mostly observing and witnessing, but it's not from this place of, oh, no one ever needs anything because birth always works. I mean, if that were the case, then I don't know, nobody would need to do anything ever. They'd never need to learn anything, right? But it doesn't always work that way. And the relationship is just so important. So I recently had a friend have a baby. I mean, she's a client, but she's a friend because I've been with her more than once, and they're super special people to me. You know, had kind of a more eventful birth experience than either of us had planned for, coupled with the fact that her dates were a little uncertain. So she had really an entire month leading up to the birth where there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of opportunity for either her freaking out or maybe me freaking out, or, you know, whatever. And so, you know, those are beautiful tests of trust, because I can't say to someone, I know, you know, I don't know anything about what she needs. You know, sometimes people do need technology, for example, or they choose that. Babies aren't always doing well. So, I mean, I'm aware of these things, but it's never my job in a trusting relationship to say, hey, you know, you should go do this thing, or even, have you thought about doing this thing? I'm simply there to say, yeah, these are options, but it comes back to you. And actually, no one can tell you, no doctor in a hospital, no ultrasound, nothing. No one can tell you what's needed. You're the one with the baby in your body. So I think that's a pretty radical perspective to have. You know, many midwives would say, sorry, you're past 42 weeks. Sorry, you've been leaking fluid for 5 days. Like, these are all reasons that I can't help you anymore. And that might make us fearful, because the great unknown in birth is endless. It's actually just so endless. You know, so anyway, back to the story. It was this woman's choice to get up every morning and proceed how she wanted to proceed, which was to do nothing. That was the right choice for her. So supporting her in that, even at moments where maybe I felt uncomfortable just with, you know, where is this going? Is this baby going to come out at some point? You know, was different. And yeah, I'm kind of getting lost in my story, but yeah, I guess it comes back to that trust and relationship, so that when you're in the birth space, holding space usually just looks like witnessing and being really solid in your own energy. That's a huge aspect of midwifery and birth attendance that no one talks about. It's not about the intellectual knowledge really, or the emergency skills. I mean, that's fine and it's great to have, but really it's about being confident in yourself and these people, and really like the divinity that I think is above all of us, you know, that we don't actually control it. So there's so many aspects to that holding space. And yeah, then occasionally there is someone that needs something at some moment, and it's completely feels appropriate, and it's not like I'm doing this to you because I have to. It's like, oh, I'm here, and this is what this situation is requiring. And so that was a rare birth, honestly, like 1 in hundreds, where it looked a little bit like that. But she was amazing, and totally stepped up to do what needed to be done to bring her baby here safely. So once in a while it looks like that, but most of the time it's just taking photos and videos and loving someone and watching them be amazing.
Right.
So
Well, that is not a passive thing. I think that's the big point too. Like anyone that's held space or going through something challenging in their life. And this is one of the biggest thing I could imagine experiencing in this human body would be giving birth. And someone just holding space could make all the difference. So it's definitely not to be underrated.
It made all the difference for me.
Yeah.
With both of you guys, just in your energetic space, just feeling like, because it is such an experience of presence, and to feel like there are others who are there in that presence who are also open channels to like divine wisdom in those moments and what might be coming through, what might be needed, but to have others tapped in and not overly in their mind and coming up with fear scenarios and acting from that place, it's everything. And it's cool that topic that we're talking about it right now, because I feel that in the world, and I feel this call to like be more and to receive more and to take action, but from that place when I feel really centered and inspired from within in that way.
Yeah. Well, we also
for sure.
We have so many. We were talking yesterday just about like all the things that we would love to hear from you about, and there's so many we can talk about, but another one that's really intriguing for us is just like what your relationships look like, specifically with your family members, so with Jason and with your kids.
Yeah, there's a lot of relationships there, for sure.
Oh, also, what's the age spread between your children right now?
The oldest will be 18. At about, like, it could be the day actually that this baby is born, so they'll be like exactly 18 years apart. Like, isn't that crazy? It's like
so cool.
Yeah, it's like almost her birthday. So 18, and right now Cove is 15 months. So that's the current age, and pretty much every 2 years in between there's 1 3-year gap, and there's 1 like 1.5 year gap. So on average 2 years.
Amazing.
9 of them. Yeah, it's so amazing, like having all of these different personalities. I mean, I don't even have words for it, and it's like you'd have to know them to fully appreciate how insanely ridiculous and awesome it is to have them all be so different. And like for Jason and I to like, I mean, maybe this sounds obvious, but it's like we never get tired of them. Like they're just such a like constant, amazing show. Like all the funny things they do, especially the little ones, and even now the older ones like are learning to drive and, you know, doing the whole like finding themselves, but in a way that we never were exposed to until we were probably in our 30s, you know? So yeah, watching them grow up, especially the oldest right now, she's taking a class on like energy and vibration and how we get to choose. And I'm like, holy crap, if I had gotten to do that at 17, you know, like where would I be? But I'm so impressed with her. She's like, oh yeah, I know this stuff, and I feel it, and I understand I have a choice. And anyway, it's been really cool to see as a parent, just that like other, you know, not the baby end, that's cool too, but just the like coming into the world and feeling like, wow, maybe this world has a chance if if the next generation is, you know, more of them are headed in that direction. So, but relationship wise, I mean, we're all really close. That's, you know, at the moment, everybody's still home, and Sedona is a really tiny town. We've been here for a long time. most of their friends, I've attended their births. So it's like that kind of community where I've seen these kids grow up. We know the families. Yeah, our kids are really close. They're together all the time. And Jason and I mean, it sounds so like cliche, but we just have an amazing relationship. We've been together since we were 17. So, you know, we've been married for 21 years or something insane like that. And we've grown up together. You know, we were completely different people when we met. We were both musicians, and we were just laughing. Our anniversary was last week or whatever, and he was saying, you know, what would you have thought if someone said, you know, you were going to have 10 children and live in Sedona, when we thought we'd like, you know, we lived in New York for a while, like we'd live in a city and we'd be doing this musician thing. So our minds are blown all the time. We look around and we're just like, how are we so lucky? How is this our life? Yeah, it's great. I mean, he's home all the time. We're both home all the time. So we definitely don't have a traditional life in that way. I mean, the kids are home, and yeah, we're just all here.
It's amazing.
What actually, thinking of that, I just got this curiosity, which is like, what does your house look like? Like, how many rooms do you have in your house?
Question.
And how many bathrooms?
Oh man, well, we are currently looking for a new house to live in. So I'm hoping this baby in particular helps guide some of that in the place that they want to be born. But we've been here for quite a while, so the kids have really grown up here. So that feels a little bit weird and maybe hard. It's a pretty big house. It's just set up really weird. So there's 4 bedrooms in the house, and then I'm in a guest house space, like next to the house. Mm-hmm. So a couple people they could easily be in here. There's a bathroom in here. And then in the house, there's 3 bathrooms.
Cool.
So honestly, our room is the tightest. Like, we have, at night, sleeping in our room, we have a baby in our bed and usually 3 other kids. And the room is not that big. But also, you have to understand, these kids have never slept alone, any of them.
Yeah.
Do the other ones share beds or rooms or both? Like, do some of them share the same bed?
Yeah. The boys, the 2 older boys have a room downstairs. They share that. The 2 kind of like middle, well, they're not really, but 2 of the girls share a room downstairs. Amelia, who's the oldest, still somehow has her own room, and nobody quite knows how, except that must be what's required. So yeah, we need to make some shifts and changes before this baby, but I'm just like waiting for some pieces to come in or something. You know, I mean, it's hard to find a place for this many people, and our yard is really fantastic. So like, there's definite benefits, and it's just not easy, to find places.
Well, we talk a lot about communication on this channel and relationships, and obviously the 2 go hand in hand. And I'm curious, like, what style of communication, you have been modeling to all these kids, and I guess what kind of style of communication you have just with your family in general. I don't know if that's too vague, but.
No, I mean, that's, I think, the secret in a way to developing relationships, especially with this many people and as they're growing up. I mean, growing up myself, I don't feel like communication was a thing. I don't know, like, everybody went their separate ways, my mom and dad were working, like, it was very just mainstream. And still to this day, I don't feel like we ever talk about anything real. So that was definitely, or has been, continues to be a goal with our children, that we don't want them to feel that way. And of course, we're crossing our fingers that we're doing it in a way that actually results in that. But that we have really open communication. Sex is a huge topic in our house. We have a lot of teenagers. We're really open about that kind of stuff. Jason in particular is like really into that because he grew up really sheltered, and it was something his parents never breathed a word of. So we feel like we have a lot of work to do just doing better with a topic like that in particular. But then just other stuff. I mean, there definitely are crazy conversations in our house around, let's see, like my son is wanting to drive, total rabbit hole, but you know, we have chosen a path outside of the system as far as that goes. And so we've been having a lot of conversations with him about that and why he might, you know, he's acting like he wants to go a different route, for example. He wants to get a permit. Well, we can't get him a permit because we don't have driver's licenses. So, you know, Jason's been asking him some really good questions about why he feels security in the system and what that might mean to him in a really like non-judgmental way. So it's been really, I mean, who has these conversations generally? I don't think most people do.
Totally. So cool.
And, you know, I think the final word last night was like, okay, he said to my son, how about you go, when you go to sleep tonight, you kind of ask for some information about where this is coming from for you, like why it feels so important to do it this way. So anyway, just continued conversations around those kind of topics, which probably aren't super typical. But, you know, when you're here all the time with each other, yeah, I feel like it's pretty honest at this point. And like I said, because everyone's under the same roof, I mean, I don't know what it'll be like, obviously, when people are moving out. But right now, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of good talks happening.
Imagine.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was curious about is like how much everyone is helping out. And also, do you guys have extra help like outside of your biological family unit, or do a lot of the younger ones help out with the younger ones?
Yes, they do. And people that have, I don't know, probably more than like 5 children know that that's kind of one of the secrets of how it all works. And I think if you don't, you know, if you have a couple of small children, for example, you know, people look at me and they're like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, of course you don't understand yet because your kids aren't old enough, you know? So it wasn't always this way. It has been in recent years. Yeah, they help a lot, and some of the help is required of them. They all have like chores and jobs that they must do daily before they can do anything else. And if they're not going to be here, they have to like work out someone else to do that for them. So mainly kitchen stuff. You know, I would spend my whole day cleaning up a kitchen, and that's ridiculous. I did that when they were younger, but I don't have that time either. So the older ones in particular have like certain times of the day that they must like do a once over and get all the stuff cleaned up. So everybody has a job except for, let's see, the youngest 3. Everybody else has a job. So 6 of them have a job to do. And then we do pay them to do extra stuff around outside of, you know, what is absolutely necessary to keep the house running.
Right.
So they'll, you know, they ask for that if they're trying to save money or whatever it is. And there's always stuff for them to do. And then, yeah, with the siblings, though, I mean, that is amazing. And I feel like something I'm most grateful for as a mother is that they truly seem to love each other and care for each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't mean they don't have like sibling fights and that kind of thing. But the older ones and the younger ones, like my son he babysits every morning so that Jason and I can hike, and the baby loves him. He's her most favorite person. Like she'll even pick him over me.
Wow.
Most mornings.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And like last night, one of my daughters, she's 14 or will be 14. She even had a friend sleep over, and they took Dava, who's 3, down, and they wanted to sleep with her. You know, she's like, she's so cuddly. I love sleeping with her. I love how she wraps her arms around me. It's so darling. And, you know, I think growing up myself, like I would have never wanted to sleep with my little sister. So it's precious. It's absolutely the best part of having a lot of kids, especially like the oldest and youngest kind of combination. You know, you think like how cool that must be for them.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they don't know it, and like as they grow up, just like what that will look like or what that will mean. It's really pretty special.
That's so beautiful.
Wow.
Oh, thank you. It really is.
One thing that people ask us a lot of questions about is like schooling, and Ilya's not even the age where they would go to school yet, but yeah, we've shared just about like unschooling, and I'm so curious what you and Jason and the kids have all felt resonates with you around, I guess, just learning in general, natural learning or whatever.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that people ask you that already?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, people ask me all the time too, and they'll say, you know, I have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and it's like, don't do anything. Just let them be 2 or 3. There's nothing to do. Yeah, I mean, I knew, you know, when we had Amelia and Egan, who were the first 2, I didn't necessarily know we'd have all these kids. But even when I only had the 2 of them, I knew they were never going to school. And the reasoning for me was it didn't make sense to me that I would send them away all day. Like, I just felt like I didn't have these kids to be rid of them. And I also didn't want someone else like programming them and like spending more time with them than I would. So yeah, I guess that's just how it all started. And we've experimented with all kinds of learning. No one's gone to a formal school. The older 2 did try a homeschool at someone's house many years ago. So there were like 2 or 3 other kids, and they did that. That's as close as we've ever gotten to a school. Other than that, we've tried different curriculums, but only a couple. I've never felt super drawn to that because it's kind of the same thing, you know? Yeah. And I think it's just changing our perception. Like, I love the way you said learning. Like, if we could talk about it like that, then we wouldn't even occasionally feel this pressure or expectation to have it be more organized than that. Because we've totally felt that too. You know, at different times, been like, okay, maybe we should do something more, I don't know, formal or regular with them. And it works for a little bit, but they're so used to being free, and they're so used to not, I hate to say being told what to do. I think there are times to have guidance and, you know, authority, but I think with learning, being told what to do eventually backfires, and it has for us. So, you know, reading, I think, is one of the easiest ways that kids learn. And we do encourage them to do that, and we will buy them any book they want. So, you know, we have to keep on that, to be honest. A couple of my kids, you know, they'd rather be outside, and they scooter all day at the scooter park. And I think that's great, but I think there's a balance too of like encouraging, you know, reading and learning it's not a very structured way. So nobody's forcing them to do much else. And honestly, with this many kids too, they inspire each other, you know, like one of them will get the bug to, let's learn Spanish. And so they want to do that. And I don't care if they're on the computer to do that. So I mean, it's kind of like I never know what's next or what people will want to learn or do. But that keeps it exciting, and I hope influences, you know, how they make choices as adults and what they'll figure out they want to do. I think it's so different for people to not have been told what they need to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just they're not growing up at all the way I did. You know, nobody's bad at anything school-wise. They just do what they like to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think learning is such a natural human thing. I mean, we all love to learn. It's just like humans want to learn. And then, yeah, I do think being filtered through a certain system can leave you as an adult being really turned off to learning and being a bit dogmatic in your learning and what learning looks like. Like, you know, and I think that's why a lot of folks in their adulthood feel a lack of passion in their lives, because they've lost that connection with just like natural learning and experimentation. Learning is fun, you know? I think, yeah. So, and we see that in kids. Like I see it in Ilya, who's now 13 months. They just, you know, they'll take this little thing.
They love this
little thing, and just put it on their finger. Like half hour.
Totally.
That is what they're learning right now, you know, and they're having a blast.
Totally.
So
yeah, it's so great.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. The other day, well, and David does this a lot. She like will just play, you know, kids play with stuff around the house, like you said. She like was playing with broccoli stalks and like making them talk, and they were doing things, and you know, it's, well, I mean, I bet you guys agree with this, at least to some degree, but the over focus on education anyway is, you know, ultimately to sort of like train people to do the whole job thing in a way that we're expected to. And, you know, as you guys are also untraditional in that way. So it's like, why would we raise our kids in a way where the goal was for them to, you know, sit behind a desk in one way or another? I mean, if that's what they want to do, that's cool. Right. But chances are it's going to evolve. My oldest daughter is a photographer. And where did that come from? She didn't even take a photography course.
Right.
You know, she got a camera. She started learning. She took some really awesome photos. She realized she was good at it. And now, you know, she works for a woman in town that does weddings. She's her second shooter, and she's been doing that since she was 16. So, you know, I don't know that she'll do that long term, but she's already shown herself that, you know, earning money, for example, is something that she is able to create for herself rather than waiting for someone else to say like, oh, you do this thing, but you must apply to do this thing, and maybe we'll pick you, and that's how you're going to earn a living.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it all comes back to that same thing around consciousness. And like, you know, if at some point, I imagine if one of your children was like, hey, I really want to go to public school, you can have a conversation about that. And like if Ilya was just like, man, I want to go to public school, it sounds awesome, be like, cool, let's, you know, why is it? And if you want to do that, we can do that. But I think there's an assumption that, you know, there's a certain route of how we're supposed to go and travel, and to have consciousness in those choices, I think is just provides so much spaciousness for us to make healthful decisions. And the decision itself, I think, doesn't matter as much as the place from which we make that decision, the consciousness.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really feel that. It's so beautiful to take what we've learned and then offer that wisdom to our children, and then receive their wisdom, and to keep growing from there.
Right.
And it sounds like we've all sort of left the idea of like traditional jobs and school and work, and kind of like broke down those structures that we built that didn't work for us. So like, why have our children rebuild them to break them down? Like, we can just build from here. And yeah, just seeing like Ilya has so much purpose and intuition and presence, and they're teaching me so much more than I really have to offer them at this time. Like, I'm teaching them some about being human, but they're teaching me so much about being spiritual and just following intuition. So together, I feel like we can do really anything.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I mean, for sure. And that's where, like, you know, the pregnancy and birth part obviously fits, and it's the same theme. It's like, just witness what's happening. You know, most of the time there's nothing to do. There's nothing we could do. Well, there are things we could do to influence it, but I mean, like a baby growing and, you know, that kind of process is like, we don't have to think about it. So kind of getting out of the way and remembering that, yeah, there is something bigger than us that's kind of like got this all taken care of, and being humble in witnessing that. It's the same thing with the kids, you know, there's not so much doing, I find, that's required. And, you know, people ask that a lot, especially with so many kids. It's like, oh, like what parenting books would you recommend or whatever? And it's like, I'm not saying I know it all. I most certainly don't, but I've learned more from my children and just trying to be present than I ever have from any book, me personally, because like they're the teachers and they're mostly just reflecting our stuff back to us in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
So it's like everything's right there for us all learning.
Maryn, before we end up wrapping things up, I would love for you to share about what you and Margot are doing in the world with your teachings around midwifery. And do you have a midwifery school? Is that right?
Yeah, we have Indie Birth Midwifery School. We also have a doula training called the Birth Warrior Project, which has also been, super exciting in different ways, just because there's so many more people that are interested in doing that role before midwifery, so they kind of work together. But yeah, the school itself has been around for going on 4 years now, and something we feel really great about because we are reaching women all over the world that believe in pretty much everything, a lot of the things we've talked about today and the way they want to serve families. And just being able to support them and have lots of information for them and a community for them to create themselves as midwives in feels really good. And I feel like is making a difference, albeit slowly, but difference nonetheless.
That's beautiful. And people can do that from all around the world. I know you just sort of said that, but that's, great.
Yeah, we've had students from, so many countries at this point. I think we have a incoming person from Ireland, the Dominican Republic. We've had students in China and the UK and United Arab Emirates, Sweden, like literally all over the world. And in a lot of those places, like Sweden for one, home births are just like illegal, totally off the table, at least in the area this woman is in. So they're really making history by doing this work
So
boldly. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Wow.
But it's a great plug for really just community in general. I feel like it's the kind of work that you really need support and other people, and you have to know it's happening, and you have to believe it can happen, and you have to see it happening, to have that confidence often, to be the one in your community that's like, okay, this is what I believe in, I'm going to jump and do it. So in that way, it's, something that keeps growing and more people everywhere. So it's been amazing. Totally just like divinely led because we didn't really plan any of that.
Yeah, those tend to be the best things.
Definitely.
And we'll all your links in the description box of all the different stuff that you're involved with in the head. And is there anything else?
Is there anything else that you want to share, Maryn?
I feel like I talked a lot, so that feels good to me. Just so honored and happy to see you two again and do something fun. I'm always up for fun collaboration. So
now
it's been great. Thank you.
With your family.
I know, it sounds amazing.
It sounds so fun. And like our family has grown and we're feeding like just 3 adults and a baby now, and our shopping trips are big. And I was thinking about your family this week, and I was just like, do you go to wholesale? Like,
yeah, you're right. I know there's so many like fun family topics like that. Just even just like how does that happen? I feel like people are curious about. So maybe we can do another chat some other time about that.
Thank you so much, Maryn.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.